And what Bitcoin really solves is
Hello, you froze.
print the money is in the hands of the very few, and the very many are spending their life. That's what you're doing. It's very important to understand that. This is a very serious topic. I appreciate all the happy hippie stuff that goes on about Bitcoin, but the reality is this is a very serious topic because you are sharing your blood, sweat, and tears for an energy exchange. You are giving your value, your life to someone, and they're giving you dollars, they're giving you euros, they're giving you pounds, they're giving you yen, they're giving you any currency that you can imagine for the exchange of your life. And what Bitcoin solves is that the first time in human history, it's actually finite. This has never happened any time in human history before. We had to not only work your blood, sweat, and tears, and then you had to become a professional investment manager in order to keep the value that you've already given out. That is a crime against humanity, and it must be registered as one. But guess what? I have a feeling it won't be. The good news is that at least we have Bitcoin to protect that human energy that each and every single one of us is putting out there in our way. Bitcoin can save that human energy for people and give them a fighting chance at protecting it, not just for themselves, because if you're like my parents, you're not holding Bitcoin just for yourself. You're not holding real estate just for yourself. You're not building a business just for yourself. We have been taken advantage of and forced to exchange our energy for these assets that anyone can print. How many people here are in control of how many properties get built in Ireland? None of us. I'm not in control of how many properties get built in the United Kingdom. Therefore, somebody else can rug pull the value, the scarcity that my parents have bought real estate in, right? They've bought real estate because it's a scarce asset. Bitcoin is the first time that nobody can rug the value that you are owning. And that's why it's extremely, extremely important. It's really, truly about the energy that is being protected and the energy conversion that's happened. Now, that is the past of Bitcoin. That is the purpose of it. We all understand that. Now we've got to really think about the present. Where are we right now? And right now, this is where things start getting dangerous because I like the whole, hey, get to Bitcoin. And obviously, you know, if you've humbled to know if any of you have heard my message of getting to 1 Bitcoin. But the reality is this. Everyone's saying that the institutions are coming, the institutions are coming. These people have got it all arse backwards. The institutions are here. They've been playing in this world since 2021. The CIO of BlackRock was on CNBC saying that Bitcoin could be a competitor for gold in 2021. Anyone who's saying that these institutions are coming is late. They're here, they're playing in the game, they're sharks in the ocean, and everyone is doing their happy hippie thing about doing DCAs and things like that. The reality is you need to convert as much energy as you want to protect to Bitcoin now because you're behind the 8 ball. You are late. It's as simple as that. More people are not realizing this. You are absolutely late. When Michael Saylor, you know, I bought MicroStrategy the first day after they announced a Bitcoin treasury business plan. He's gone from $500 million to being given permission to to dilute the stock $42 billion in order to buy Bitcoin. Conveniently, that happens after BlackRock gets in the game. BlackRock gets in the game. That was the change. I want everyone to remember this date, June 15th, 2023. That is when the landscape changed. That is the moment that this whole thing went to a new stratosphere. That is the date that BlackRock filed for their ETF. And if you think that Michael Saylor getting $42 billion of ATM ability and $42 billion of borrowing debt ability is like coincidental after BlackRock got in the game, you're naive. The game has completely and utterly changed. And what have we seen since then? We've seen the entire C-suite of the American government get behind Bitcoin. And if anyone here thinks that politicians are smart enough to read the Bitcoin standard and go, you know what, this is such a great idea, and what I'm going to do now is get every single one of my other co-senators to also get on board in a single year, you're naive. This is a game that's been set up. Bitcoin is the target, and they're going to get as much of it as they can. And you have one chance to do this because you can't just build more property. You can't just launch more unicorns. This is a once in a species opportunity to own as much Bitcoin as humanly possible to you. And look, your country, my country have been forced down a path of bad immigration policies, bad capitalism policies. Why? Because they control the money printer. Everyone believed, we got fooled into thinking that our opinion is worth more than our financial power. That's a lie. Your opinion is not worth any. The whole point of a democracy is that you get to express a vote, and that vote should mean something so that you do not need to waste time expressing your opinion. And what we've experienced over the last 15 to 20 years is we've experienced a reality where we've been told that our ability to express an opinion is worth more than the amount of financial power that we have. Well, Bitcoin fixes that injustice as far as I'm concerned. You have to get the money, and Bitcoin is the best money. The people that are making the rules in the United Kingdom are the property owners and the landowners. In the future, the people that will be making the rules for the world are the Bitcoin holders. And in order to be a part of that, you've got to hold enough Bitcoin, which is why I turned on the jets as far as my content goes. And yeah, some people think my content's very aggressive. They don't like the message. They don't like how it's being delivered. I don't give a shit, because this is a once in a species opportunity for you to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible for your family. That's the only thing that matters. If you want your last name to matter in the world, you must hold as much Bitcoin as possible. And if you own real estate right now, you own business right now, you are going to be rug pulled, because the only way to keep the peasants happy in this world, because remember, we've gone from 1930s, the birth of like mortgages to a certain extent, then the 70s where they securitized mortgages, right? Which is what started this trend of this acceleration of real estate values until 2008, where the whole thing blew up. Why? Because they were depending on people to get mortgages. They were depending on people to push lending in order to get these dollars out there as quick as possible. With Bitcoin, they don't need to do that. They can print as much money as possible and shove it into Bitcoin. Nobody is going to be jumping out of a building. Nobody is going to be homeless. And most importantly, the voting class, the peasant class, will be happy, because housing is about to become very affordable. Unless you own prime real estate, housing is about to become very affordable. Why? Because I believe there's going to be a property price stagnation for normal properties, normal family homes. And over the next 15 years, as wages continue to climb, properties are going to become more affordable. That is a wealth tax on the average wealthy. And the average wealthy is like somewhere between $500,000 to $30 million net worth. Past 30 million, you go into the ultra high net worth. The ultra high net worth, they're over indexed on equities right now anyway. They're not in majorly in their portfolio in real estate. So the normal people that have got their net worth in real estate are about to get rug pulled. These are my parents. These are your parents. These are you guys. We are about to get rug pulled on the value of our property. And it's going to be, oh, the property value just stayed the same for 15 years. That's the rug pulling that's going to happen. So you've got to convert that energy. Because, by the way, the person who securitized those mortgages was Larry Fink. And I'm not saying that he was like around. He was one of the key players in securitizing those mortgages and starting that trend of mortgage-backed securities, which led to the inflation of house prices, which is where the majority of wealth is stored. It's a $350 trillion worldwide asset. By the way, if Bitcoin goes up 100x from here, it's 50% of real estate. Think about how big this opportunity still is. So the next thing, again, the future of Bitcoin is institutional, sovereign, corporate, ultra high net worth acquisition. I'll tell you a funny story. I know a person who's worth $7 million. I know another person who's worth $250 million. Their assets are managed by the exact same bank in the US. The advisor, and this is blew my mind, the advisor who's advising the person with a $7 million net worth is not recommending Bitcoin. The advisor is advising the person with a $250 million net worth is advising a 14% allocation in Bitcoin. Make it make sense. The reality is this: they're going to skip out on that middle class. The middle class in terms of wealth is 500,000 to $30 million. This is going straight to the ultra high net worth, and you've got one opportunity to get it. There it is. One of the saddest things I saw, and it made me realize how badly I failed in my content. Last year in Q4, 6 to 900,000 Bitcoin moved from retail hands to institutional hands. This year, River put out this chart. This year, 250,000 Bitcoin have moved in the first quarter of this year from retail hands to institutional hands. They are going to take your Bitcoin at any cost. Why? Because they understand what I said. 100x from here is only 50% of the real estate market cap. This is not, they're not going after gold here. That's the pitch. Real estate's the target, because this solves so many problems for unlimited money printing. You have no idea. That's why Bitcoin treasury companies are coming. That's why Michael Saylor's coming. That's why all of these people and all of these institutions and all of these facilities are here. I am today being offered lending from private banks. So it's high net worth lending, right? But I'm being offered today lending on my IBIT and MSTR positions at national central bank rates. If I want to borrow money in Swiss francs, I can do it at 1%. If I want to borrow money in the US dollar, I can borrow it at 4.5%. Today, that's happening right now. The US hasn't even opened yet. The OCC just confirmed that banks can custody Bitcoin. This is coming, but it's going to be a private banking solution. They are going to skip out on the middle class, and they're going to go straight to the people who hold the most dollars. Why? Because unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, Bitcoin is a monetary network. It is not a human network. So I get all the happy, hippie, feel good shit. But at the end of the day, how much you own is what's important. And as far as Larry Fink and everybody else in wealth management understands this, the amount of dollars that go into Bitcoin is what's important, not the amount of people. So they don't care. They don't care whether you end up with nothing. They don't care whether your children end up with zero Bitcoin. They don't care. Why? Because it's a monetary network. One person with $1 billion is worth way more than 1 billion people with $1 to them. So you have, and I have, and everyone has one chance to get this right, because otherwise Bitcoin is going to enter this private banking space, and it's already happened in other parts of the world. It's now coming to the US, and it's now going to come to Europe, and hopefully to the United Kingdom. We've been a bit slow over there, and to you guys as well. And I believe that they are going to incentivize you to give up your Bitcoin one way or another. And unfortunately, people are doing it. And you've got to choose to not be one of those people. You got to choose to not buy that house. You got to sit there and go, oh, I have this amount of Bitcoin. I want to buy this. And I've been holding for 8 years. Hold longer. Just one more cycle. Just hodl one more cycle. Why? Because look what we have now. 4 years ago, we did not have the ability to generate income from Bitcoin. Now there's income funds like MSTY and all these things that are monetizing volatility for you to do this. There are lending products that are coming. All of these facilities are coming because, again, Bitcoiners, one of the fallacies, in my opinion, that us Bitcoiners go through is we seem to think that Bitcoin is like brand new for the TradFi markets. It's not. TradFi already has the rails to understand what to do with Bitcoin, and they're salivating right now. They're salivating because you guys are giving up your Bitcoin for $100,000 when they know it's going to 13 million inside of 20 years. They're salivating because it's so easy. They didn't know it was going to be this easy, but they're salivating because everyone is giving up 1 million coins for nothing. Everyone is out here figuring out how to trade. Everyone is out here doing stupid things like buying Bitcoin, converting it to MSTR. And before that MSTR has made up the amount of Bitcoin per share that you've just traded it for, they're selling it and buying Metaplanet at a 5x MNAV. And then they're they're shitting themselves because the price of Metaplanet collapses. So they sell that and buy it back into the Bitcoin, except now they're down 60% on the net Bitcoin that they held. Bitcoin is the hurdle rate. That's the mindset that I want to share with everyone. Bitcoin is the hurdle rate. That is the minimum return that you should be focused on. Bitcoin is the new zero, and everything else is on top of that. Look, I want to get to as many questions as possible. The main point here is you have one chance. The institutions are here and they will do everything they can to take your Bitcoin. Take this seriously. Stop the happy hippie shit and understand that how much you own will determine the value of your last name.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we're going to run it straight into questions. Thanks a lot for that. Great round of applause. Okay, anyone want any questions? Okay, stand up there. Do you want to stand up? Tego.
Yes. I don't know if he's the best person to ask, but I'm pretty new to Bitcoin and just a couple of months, to be honest. But I'm struggling to find no KYC methods to buy my Bitcoin. I don't know if that's the right person to ask, but just put it out there.
There you go.
Yeah, look, everyone's focused on these no KYC, this, that, and the other. The only thing that matters is whether you hold the Bitcoin or not. So unless you've got, sources of income that we don't need to discuss on a public live stream that really mattered for getting no KYC Bitcoin, I would much rather you just buy the damn Bitcoin one way or another. Get the Bitcoin, get it into cold storage, secure your future, and then we can worry about all these other things. Because at the end of the day, everyone has these fantasies like, okay, I'm gonna have no KYC Bitcoin and then run from the government. They will put you in jail and keep you there for 30 years until you give up that Bitcoin. I don't care what any Bitcoiner says. They put you in jail. They snatch you away from your family and they say, give us this Bitcoin, you're going to hand it over.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, another question here from Patrick.
Hey, British. I'm not clear. What are the 3 rules of Bitcoin?
I don't know. It's
normally
kind
goes
of
at the end, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'll remind you at the end.
He'll remind you at the end. Okay, we have another question here from Tig.
MSTR or IBIT in a traditional pension? Which one? Or both?
Yeah, I think you need a split of both. Like the way if now we're going to talk about, very quickly talking about portfolio management. And portfolios are set up in with 3 different buckets, right? You have savings, you have investments, you have income. And depending on what your net worth is, you have to balance out what it is. If you're not a millionaire yet, I think personally, my opinion is you should be focused 100% on growth. And that's what you should focus on, right? So look, I think if you've got, depending on your net worth levels, I think a 50% spot Bitcoin allocation, a 40% growth, i.e. MSTR allocation, a leveraged Bitcoin position, and then a 10% income position starts to make sense, but it really is individual.
Okay, we have another question here from Jimmy. Jimmy, you want to stand up?
Yeah, quick question. I'm curious for short-term question. In your best estimation, what's the current market's top going to be?
It doesn't matter. Look, this is all mental masturbation. The top doesn't matter because there's no bottom to the dollar, right? I don't understand why people are fascinated about what this. Look, here's the thing. I'm about to release a video, right? And it's going to be called the BlackRock Bitcoin Cycle, the BBC, right? Don't get your mind confused. So the BlackRock Bitcoin cycle, I think, is going to be different. And if all you've got to do to understand why it's going to be different is bring up the gold chart from 2004 when the GLD ETF, and my background's gold, right? So what happened when the GLD ETF came out was that all of this demand kept going into gold. And the only reason it stalled out in 2011 was because when you understand gold, it takes about 8 to 10 years for the miners to catch up with the increase in demand. So all this investment went into the miners in 2004, and by about 2010, they'd started digging up more gold out the ground and purifying it and selling it to people. So the difference is you can't do that with Bitcoin. So I think you're going to have a steady uprise for the next 10 to 15 years. I think there's a high possibility that the cycles have changed. And if you're sitting here going, I want to time the tops here, I'm the wrong person to talk to because I'm permanently bullish.
That's it. Okay, another question here from Jeffrey.
Hi, British. So a lot of people who are hodling for a long time want to be able to access their wealth in some form of manner. What is your opinion on collateral-based Bitcoin loans?
Yeah, look, I think, again, The one advantage I have of being British HODL is that I've never taken a single sponsor. I've never sold, I've never turned on monetization on YouTube because I don't need to. I can make any video I want. I can say exactly what I think is going to happen. And here's the reality on Bitcoin lending solutions. They're all shit, right? If you're paying 14% to borrow against your Bitcoin. Firstly, they all talk about collaborative custody, which is a bunch of bullshit because at the end of the day, you're giving up custody of your Bitcoin. If you don't hold all the keys, you are giving up custody. They named it collaborative custody to make you feel better, but the reality is you don't have all the keys. So if you don't have all the keys anyway, why wouldn't you, depending on your net worth level, use something like IBIT and borrow against that at like a 5.5% rate instead of paying 14%? These, by the way, are all the tricks that TradFi will use to make you leak wealth. This is the problem here. Because if I can borrow money on my Bitcoin at 5.5% and you're paying 14.5%, my family, my last name will end up with more Bitcoin than you will because of the interest that you're paying. So these are very sneaky long-term TradFi games. It's why, the wealthiest people in the world can borrow money at 1% and you can borrow money at 8%, and why they get richer than you, why they stay wealthier than you. This is it's an ingrained illusion that this is a good thing. You've got to be very careful here. And right now is the time to start paying attention to all this armory. Look, we have got, because of the securitization of Bitcoin, you are being given a new armory to protect your Bitcoin empire. And it's like, it's like the US Army turning around and training all of their soldiers to use AK-47s and nothing else, right? You got to learn how all of these other tools work, and they're coming into the game now. And I don't think any of those Bitcoin lending solutions are going to survive. I think they're going to be folded up very quickly because a 14% interest rate is ridiculous.
Okay, we have another question. Do you want to stand up there? Yeah. Hang on. Just use this one.
In your opinion, are the ETFs controlling the prices of Bitcoin with the help of governments at the moment? Because based on the volume of Bitcoin the ETFs have bought, should the price not have gone sky high at this stage?
Yeah, look, one of the things I spoke about last year on my YouTube channel was that there's going to be a rotation of buyers, and this sort of happens every new step function that Bitcoin takes. And it's been a lot more than I thought it was going to be, right? I didn't realize that retail was going to sell Bitcoin at 100,000 and go buy holiday homes and things like that. But so much of this has happened. It's been a lot more than I thought it was going to be. Is there control? This is a whole conspiracy realm that we deal with. In the gold space, we sort of deal with this, with JP Morgan trying to control the gold. It's all bullshit. JP Morgan got sued, and they lost the battle for $30 million because they were spoofing the price, and it affected the price by 0.3% on certain days. Don't worry about the conspiracy of it. The beautiful thing about Bitcoin is it's all about supply and demand, and there's an absolute finite supply. So at some point when this rotation changes, you see it. As soon as the sellers leave the market, the price goes parabolic to the upside. And that is going to take time. Now, is there going to be games played by institutions to make sure that they can secure the most amount of Bitcoin? Absolutely. I would do the same thing. If I was an institution and I had the ability to control the price of Bitcoin and scare retail, I would do the same thing to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. This game is ruthless. If you think everyone's out here just patting you on the back, hoping that you get as much Bitcoin as you want, you're naive. Everyone wants this scarce asset, and they don't care who else has some.
Yeah, so protect that Bitcoin and keep stacking. We've got a question here from Luis, and we've got one more then.
Okay, hey. My question is, what would you recommend for people that usually doesn't know how to store their coins? Because you can create many different wallets, for example, and to send your Bitcoins, and this can protect yourself. But suppose that you die, okay? So you have many different ways as well to give some specific key phrase for your wife, your kids, or someone else, because this is something that you need to pay attention when you hold a huge amount of Bitcoin and all your money, all your source of income, you are putting everything there. So for those that doesn't know, what would you recommend?
I think you've got to look at multi-sig technology. I think Casa is a great company, and there's other great companies that provide support on how to create a reliable multi-sig and help walk you through it. But I think multi-sig is the way to go if you have a family structure that you're trying to work with.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got the Bitcoin advisors here as well, and Sound Money
There you go.
Solutions. Talk to them. Go outside there,
Yep.
Luis, and talk to them. Yeah. We've got another question over here. Just give me 1 second. Okay, change the plan. Okay. One more. Okay, over here, and then one more. Okay, one last one.
Hi. As the number of Bitcoin reward keeps halving, and they get scarcer and scarcer, what's the incentive for the miners to keep going, or does that incentive eventually disappear?
Well, that's why the price has to keep going up to keep incentivizing the miners. There's a relationship here between the amount of supply that comes out and what the miners are able to do, and the price and the scarcity. So all of that gets taken care of in the amazing code that Satoshi Nakamoto blessed us with.
Okay, we've got the last question from Andrew, and then you can bring it in then after Andrew's question, okay?
Hi. Do you have an opinion on Michael Saylor and if he gets liquidated, and what are the implications if he does?
Yeah, look, so a lot of people are not understanding what MSTR is doing. There is no price at which Michael Saylor can get liquidated on their Bitcoin. The Bitcoin is not secured against any debt that they have on the company. It is a remarkable thing that they've set up here. And as far as Michael Saylor goes, I'm blessed. I'm one of the people probably had the most one-on-one time out of all the Bitcoin people with Michael Saylor, because in 2021 it was 4 of us, including him, that had dinner at his house for an evening. And look, one of, if not the smartest person and fast-thinking people I've ever met in my life and probably will ever meet. That's my opinion on Michael Saylor. And by the way, the whole team's great. The whole team at Strategy is amazing. It's not just Michael Saylor running this. He's got a whole team there. They're all aligned. All the shareholders are aligned. And they've got an amazing, amazing setup.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thanks a lot for joining us. Do you want to wrap it up and tell people, just wrap it up with something, and then we'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, look, I want to wrap it up with a beautiful saying, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this. It's one of the sayings that I remember. It's a great blessing, and I hope it makes a lot of sense for you guys. Firstly, thanks for having me, Lawrence. I think it's been an honor, and apologies I couldn't be there. But I love this saying. It says, "May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, and the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand." And ultimately, there are always only 3 rules to Bitcoin. Step number 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, you shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you get fabulously wealthy. Thank you for having me.
There you go. Thanks a lot. Bula boss. Okay, there you go. Thank you, British HODL. And we'll catch up again soon, okay? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.